Hello there. Welcome back. It's April. This is day number 7 of 30 days of exposing my truth. And I was thinking about what I was going to share, what truths I was going to share this week. And I remembered a podcast interview that I was on in 2021. And during this podcast interview called Get Attitude by Glenn Bill, the host asked me a question at the end, towards the end of the interview. He said, "What was an attitude lesson that you learned at age 10?" And I was not prepared. I had no idea he was going to ask me that question and the following questions, but he literally asked me, what was the attitude lesson that I learned for each decade of my life at 10 years old, at 20, at 30, and at 40. Now, at the time that I filmed the podcast interview, I was not yet 50 years old, but I recently turned 50 years old, so I'm sharing that lesson as well. So I've had so many lessons I've learned during a decade of my life, for each decade that I've been alive on this planet. But I wanted to just share the ones that I really just came from my heart, that I shared just off the top of my head, that came from that podcast interview. So here they are. I've got some notes down here, so just kind of bear with me. Number 1, the lesson that I learned at age 10 years old was to contribute to my family, to learn how to share, learn how to take my turn, and to help my siblings. Around 10 years old, I grew up in a very large family with 6 kids. So that was a huge lesson that I learned back then, was just learning how to contribute in a bigger family. The lesson that I learned at 20 years old, this was another big one. This was really big, actually, is I learned to take my power back, because at that time in my life, I was in an abusive relationship, and it was not good for myself or for my kids. It was very controlling, and I made the decision to leave that relationship. And ever since then, I've never been in an abusive relationship or anything like that ever again. And I left when I was 24 years old and changed my life and changed who I chose to date and who I chose to be in relationships with. So it was a huge lesson learned. At age 30, the lesson that I learned was I started being more confident and to go after my dream. So in my 30s, at around early 30s, I was a marketing manager for an IRL race team. And I sold race sponsorships for the race team. I did that for a couple of years. It was an incredible experience. I honed my skills in sales and marketing during that time frame of my life. And I also began selling real estate. I did very well during that time, generated $9 million in sales in 1 year, one salesperson of the year selling real estate. So it was a season of really learning to really go after my dreams and to start building my confidence. At age 40, the lesson that I learned in my 40s was surrender. This was a big one, because the third stage of spiritual growth is learning to let go of my need to control everything, trying to control, and learning to surrender more deeply. And for me, that is surrendering to God. And it has to do with trusting God and building my faith. That's what that lesson was all about. It's been life-changing. I'm still practicing that throughout on an every daily basis. And then the other lesson that I learned that I did not share in the podcast interview, but since I've now turned 50 years old recently, the big lesson that I learned after turning 50 that I'm on now, the path I'm on now, is learning to remove the mask and letting people in to see more of my truest self. It's choosing to show up as my most authentic self. Just me, unfiltered, nothing to prove. I spent many years trying to be who I think I should be and trying to be who other people want me to be out of fear of rejection or trying to get people to like me. And I'm learning that it doesn't matter who you are. When we begin to express our truest self, what we really believe, who we really are, what our unique perspective is in our personal life and in business too, since I've been a business owner for 12 years, there are going to be some people that will be magnetically drawn to you even more into a closer, authentic connection. But then there will be just a few people that will actually move away from us, and they won't like us. They won't maybe resonate with what we have to say. They might unsubscribe from our email list or even unfriend us on Facebook or whatever. But I'm no longer trying to be who I think I should be, because I'm just choosing to be my authentic self at this point. And my goal is to do it from a place of being healed, not from a wounded place. That's what I've learned in my 50s. It's been life-changing. Is there any big lessons that you've had to learn? Maybe it's some decade in your life. If so, share them below. I would love to read them and hear some of the lessons you've learned. There's so many others I've learned. I couldn't possibly put them all in this post or even in this video. I'll share more deeply on those soon. But share yours below, and I'll see you soon. Bye.